Hi everyone, happy Mother's Day. Today I just wanted to talk about, a little bit of a reflection as to how I'm feeling as a mother. You may or may not know I have 4 children. They are all adults now. My oldest is going to be 26 in November. My second will be 24 in September, and my twinsies will be 22 in just a couple of weeks. It is really mind-blowing when I think about where I am in my stage of life, that I have adult children, and how far I've come as far as motherhood. I don't recall being very anxious about being a mother. I've always thought that that was going to be just part of what happens. You grow up, you find your love, you get married, then you have children. So it wasn't one of those things like, I want to be a mother so bad. As a matter of fact, when I was younger and I lived in the Philippines, we never babysat anybody because the family was always so close-knit. So if ever you needed your children to be watched over, there was always a cousin or an aunt or whatever to watch over the kids. I did know that I wanted to be a mother. I knew that because, like I said, I knew that it was going to be just what was supposed to happen. It's like turning a page in a book. When you continue reading, you turn the page and then you have a new chapter. And so I guess I always considered motherhood to be another chapter in the book. You turn the page and there it is. And I was fortunate to have experienced incredible pregnancies with my children. My husband and I had this grand plan as to how we were gonna have our kids. So of course we wanted to be married for a certain amount of time, spend some time together as husband and wife, and then start to build our family. Now, of course, life doesn't always go according to plan. My husband ended up getting stationed. He was in the Air Force at the time. He was given orders to go to Korea for a year. And that was going to put a big dent in our plans. So knowing that he was going to have a 2-week break in between, so he's gonna have 1 whole year. In the 6th month, he is allowed to have a 2-week break so he can come back home, and then he finishes the rest of his tour, and then he completes it. Our plan was, when he came back from his tour, that we were going to start trying having children, and then that way, thinking that I'm going to get pregnant right away, and when he comes back, then I will be 5 months, 6 months pregnant. Timing will be perfect. There will be the last trimester. He'll be home. We'll get to greet our new baby together, and everything will be like a fairy tale. That's not exactly how it happened. I would say a week before he was about to fly out to Korea, he and I took a little getaway. We went up, because we were living in Washington State at the time. So we went over to the coastline and just spent the weekend there. And we brought our dog, and I remember I was so grumpy. I was just like the royal bitch from hell. I didn't even recognize myself. I was just so grumpy. I was tired. I was just a real pain in the ass. And my husband, he was so patient with me. And I remember during dinner one time, I ordered a glass of wine, and he had said to me, "What if you're pregnant? What if the reason why you've been acting like this is because you're pregnant. And of course I brushed him off like, whatever, there's no way, I'm not pregnant. We have this whole thing planned out. We knew exactly when we were gonna have kids. No. So we found out about, I believe it was either 2 or 3 days before he flew out to Korea that I was indeed pregnant. It was a very joyful news and a very depressing news, because that meant that he won't be home when I give birth to our baby. But you know, it's the Air Force. What can we do? We just have to do whatever they tell us to do. So he left. Funny story, we ended up sharing our news of pregnancy on April 1st. So when we called his family, particularly his dad, he thought we were pulling his leg. He was like, no way, you guys are pulling an April 1st prank on me. And we're like, no, this is for real, I'm actually pregnant. And I don't know how it sank in, but they finally decided, oh my gosh, they're serious, I can't believe it. Fast forward to when our child was born, my husband ended up postponing his half leave, which is basically the 2-week vacation, until later. I ended up going into labor earlier than expected, 2 weeks prior to the due date, as a matter of fact. And I remember I called my husband and I told him, this is what's happening. I think my water broke. I don't remember. Something happened. And I was cramping and I was bleeding. And I called him. And immediately he started contacting his commanders to ask if he can fly home. And his commander above him that he was supposed to go to denied it, wouldn't let him go anywhere. So he decided that's not gonna work. So he surpassed that and he went up higher, and he was permitted to get time off. I have a correction to make. The break between the 6 months is actually supposed to be just 1 week, not 2 weeks. Correction. Fortunately, I ended up going into the hospital. My water did break. I started going into labor, and my husband was given permission to go home. Unfortunately, I gave birth before he came home, so he missed the birth completely, which made me really sad. And for the longest time, I really had this like anger towards the military, because they withheld this very magical, important event from us being shared together. I was really mad. He did end up flying home the day after our oldest was born, and we were all able to have a reunion. And the best part is that he was able to stay 2 weeks. That's why it was confusing, the whole 2-week vacation. He was actually able to stay 2 weeks instead of just 1. So he was able to stay with us, you know, be a father to Jalen, and I don't know, adjust, I guess. It had to have been a shock for him, because he literally left. I was this little skinny toothpick of a person, and he came back and I was a whale. I was a whale with a brand new baby. I can only imagine the shock that he went through. And after that, you know, with the military, we still shared some more time apart, but it comes with the territory. And fortunately also, I had my mom and my brothers with me during labor, so that was good. Although it doesn't exchange his presence. I still wished he was there, but you know what, whatever. So, you know, a little less than 2 years after that, we gave birth to our second child. I remember when I was pregnant with my second child, Connor, I really wanted Jake to know how it felt to be with somebody who was pregnant, because he missed the whole thing. He missed my whole pregnancy with our first child. So he never experienced my cravings. He never experienced, you know, I never experienced the ice cream with pickles that I can remember. or, sending him out in the middle of the night and grabbing some odd type of burger to satisfy my cravings. Never did any of that. So when my second pregnancy came along, I was like, okay, I want him to really feel it. It was like I'm sticking it back to him because he missed the first one. Not that it was his choice, but he experienced the whole thing. And when it was time for the childbirth, my little Connor, I was on epidural. Oh, and I didn't tell you, when I gave birth to my oldest, the epidural didn't work, so I witnessed it all. It was like, I barely remember it now, but it was very painful. And nobody could touch me because it was just like so painful. And then when Connor was born, I was given the epidural, and that worked like magic. And I remember my doctor telling me, okay, push. And I'm like, okay, is it working? Okay, I'm pushing, I think. I couldn't tell. And he was born, and I remember his very first sound sounded like a little bird of a cry. It was the sweetest, most beautiful thing that I would ever hear. And yeah, and of course now I have 2 boys, and it was just, I cannot believe, just thinking about it. I mean, it's literally giving me goosebumps right now. They were so beautiful. It was definitely a lot of work. And, I always considered myself to be a mama's, or not a mama's, but I always considered myself to be a better mom towards girls because I was such a girly girl that having boys was kind of difficult. But, I adjusted really fast. And I just loved my little boys. And then, not 2 years later, my husband was like, I'm done having kids. 2 boys are enough. 2 kids are enough. We don't need any more. Of course, I was like, well, but I really want a girl. I really want to try for a girl. But my husband was just like, no, I'm done, whatever. He started talking about getting snipped and everything, and I'm just like, no. And of course, my family, his side of the family, my side of the family were like, no, you gotta have more kids, you gotta try for that girl, whatever. So less than 2 years after, I remember we went grocery shopping, and because in the last weeks maybe, I was just feeling exhausted, like I just didn't have the energy for anything, and I couldn't explain why. And I would wake up my toddlers, and I would feed them breakfast, and I would, cover them up with toys and just spread toys everywhere and make sure that they were safe. And I'd take a nap on the couch right where they're at because I just couldn't keep up with my energy. And I was trying to figure out what was happening. I was trying to figure out, I don't know. So the only thing that I can come back to is that, am I pregnant? Is there something going on? Let me go ahead and rule that one out. So we went to the grocery store, we went shopping. And because my husband was just like, I'm done having kids, I had to hide it from him. I didn't want to let him know that I might consider, I'm considering that I might be pregnant. So I grabbed a pregnancy test. And as soon as we got home, I told him I was going to the bathroom. Discreetly, I tucked the test under my shirt, went to the bathroom. I did the pee test, waited for 2 minutes. I remember he was just like, honey, what's taking you so long? And I'm just like, oh yeah, I'll be right there. And I looked at the stick, and to be honest, I was disappointed. It came out not pregnant, negative. So there was a feeling of relief and disappointment at the same time. The idea of getting pregnant again would have been amazing, and I just enjoyed my pregnancy with my 2 boys so much that I wouldn't have minded it if I was pregnant. But the test came out negative, so therefore I'm not pregnant. It kind of gave me a sigh of relief. And when I finally came out of the bathroom, my husband asked me, what took you so long? And I came clean, and of course he was shocked. He was like, why? Why would you assume you're pregnant? And I'm like, because I couldn't, I just needed to rule it out. It was one of those things that I just needed to like count it off and know that that's not the reason, so there's something else. And so we proceeded with our evening. And that night, before we went to bed, I went to the restroom, of course, you know, emptying out my bladder before I go to sleep. And I just, out of curiosity, decided to pick up the stick out of the trash bin. It was literally like right there. So I picked up the stick and oh my gosh, I was looking at it and I'm just like, honey! I looked at the box and I'm literally like in disbelief here. And I call my husband and he's like, what? And I said, come here, I want to show you something. He goes, well, can't you show me over here? And I said, no. So he finally came and I hand him the stick. He looks at it and he says, where's the box? And so I hand him the box and I'll never forget just the look on his face. It was just like his face froze and he turns to me and he said, you're pregnant. So of course to me, I'm like so happy. I'm so happy I'm pregnant. And then here he is, just, I don't know, was devastated. I don't know, was he more shocked? I couldn't really tell. I just know that he was not expecting that. So that night, I remember we sat in bed, lights were off, and I had a grin on my face. I was happy. And he kept saying, you're pregnant. I can't believe you're pregnant. And then, yeah. And then, at 9 weeks, okay, I went in for my ultrasound to 100% confirm that I was indeed pregnant. They did a vaginal ultrasound and the optometrist, goodness, the OBGYN, the OB confirmed I was indeed pregnant and I was 9 weeks pregnant. And he's like, congratulations, yada, yada, yada. Okay, we'll schedule you for 11 weeks. Okay, and I'm still like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it, I'm pregnant. You know, I don't know, I was super excited for that time just because my husband was finished. I'm hoping it's a girl, and you know, we have this last opportunity. So at 11 weeks, we go back, and my OB was poking around down there, and he was just like, he just kept making these sounds. I didn't see that there before. Huh, that's interesting, right? And I'm just like, what's happening? What's going on? And I'm looking at the monitor screen, and I can kind of see, of course, I've seen an ultrasound screen and what it looks like, so I'm kind of aware, but I wasn't used to seeing what I was seeing. I've never seen what I was seeing. And I wasn't sure if it was like the baby, I see the baby and then like a blob. I didn't know if there was a cyst in there. I didn't know if there was, you know, something. And then finally, my doctor said, you're having twins. My husband's face turned white. I remember the nurses offered him orange juice and asked him if he needed to sit down. And he literally turned like a ghost. He was just like, she's having twins. Not only is she pregnant, she's having twins. And yeah, so that is how our story became 2 to 3 to 4 to 6. I did get my girl and my boy. And so after that, I knew that my family was complete. And it really has been an incredible journey. The gift of motherhood to me is one that the best gift I could have ever imagined receiving. My children are my pride and joy. They're also my pain in my ass. But I They're my heart. They taught me how to be the best mom I can be. I'm not perfect by any means, shape, or form. I know that I have traumatized my children in more than one way. However, I am so incredibly grateful for the gift of motherhood, for the gift of my children. I cannot describe really with the appropriate words how their gift, the joy they bring me, even through the tough times of high school and all of that. You know, the challenges, they're all there. They all said no. You know, they even cursed once in a while. They broke rules. The fire department came here at one point that I can remember. The police went to our house twice. Oh, those are all fun stories. So we've had our fair share of exciting moments, but I wouldn't trade those for anything in the world. And today, I'm so happy. My 2 older boys surprised me yesterday. One flew in from San Diego, my oldest, and my second flew in from Washington State. And my heart is just so full. And I'm just so grateful for them, for the gift of motherhood. And I'm so grateful to have been blessed and to have been given the opportunity to be a mother. So today, I would like to honor all the mothers out there, whether you're a mother of a child that you gave birth to, or a mother of a child that you adopted, or a child in a version of a pet, because I have those too. Happy Mother's Day. I hope that you consider yourself a queen today. And motherhood is such hard work. There is a lot of sweat and tears and joy and pain and everything that you could possibly imagine feeling. And it is not for the weak. So I honor you. Congratulations. I really, really hope today you know how much you are loved and how special you are. And we, as mothers, are also gifts. So with that, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to hear more stories about my experiences with my 4 incredibly crazy, chaotic, beautiful children, let me know. I would love to share them with you. That's it for now. Until next time, we'll see you at the next video.